US President Donald Trump has ordered a strike on Iran. In his State of the Union address, US President laid out arguments in favor of a potential war against the Islamic Republic. Trump stated directly that for 47 years the Iranian regime and its proxies have spread terrorism and hatred, killing thousands of people in the region, including American soldiers and at least 32,000 civilians during the protests that erupted at the end of December. Therefore, according to him, it is time to put an end to this regime. But Donald Trump also said something that will definitely convince skeptics within the US in favor of striking Iran. From a purely political strategy point of view, this was actually a protest, a call for the public to prepare for such a war. Trump unexpectedly stated that the Iranian regime of the Ayatollahs has developed ballistic missiles that threaten Europe and American bases in the region. And most importantly, Trump publicly stated that Iran has acquired intercontinental ballistic missiles that, quote, will soon reach the US and therefore the US must strike first. And this is already an argument used to finally convince the public of the correctness of starting a war, since Iran has begun to pose a direct threat to Americans on their own soil. And here we are. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio on the same day holds a closed briefing on Iran for congressmen and senators. And the American military is sending another batch of combat aircraft to the Middle East. My name is Alexi Pichi. Let's discuss this topic together, but before we begin, subscribe to this channel, like the video, leave any comment under this episode, and follow my Telegram channel, Peachy News. The link is in the description of this video. There we post breaking news as it comes in. So, in his State of the Union address, President Donald Trump said that he prefers, of course, a diplomatic solution to the crisis with Iran, but at the same time he laid out arguments in favor of war against the Islamic Republic. It's telling that Trump didn't focus on Iran for very long, but he threw out points that completely undermine those who are still opposed to attacking Iran. Nevertheless, this was the first time Trump laid out in detail the reasons that prompted him to consider launching a military campaign against Iran. If you look at Donald Trump's speech through the eyes of a political strategist, this is a classic start to an effort withdrawal of the rumor from the area, the severity of the time frame, and grown up. UG. But as you know, nothing unites society like some kind of external threat. Donald Trump's speech in Congress increased the likelihood that the meeting of his envoys Jared Kushner and Stephen Witkoff with Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, scheduled for Thursday in Geneva, could be the last chance to achieve a diplomatic breakthrough and prevent war. In his speech, Trump outlined a number of reasons for the current crisis with Iran and stated that for 47 years the Iranian regime of the Ayatollahs and their appointees have spread terrorism and hatred, killing thousands of people in the region, including American soldiers and at least 32,000 civilians during the protests that erupted last December. It sounds frightening, but to some Americans this may seem like a distant problem. That's why Trump immediately added that the Iranian regime has already developed ballistic missiles that threaten Europe and American bases in the region. And to drive the point home, most importantly, according to Trump, the Iranians are right now developing intercontinental ballistic missiles that will soon be able to reach the United States of America. That's why we need to get ahead of them and strike first. Although I should note right away that even according to American intelligence estimates, Iran is indeed developing such missiles. But for them to be able to reach America, which is almost 10,000 kilometers away, it will take at least another decade. But the point, I think, is clear. The main thing is to present some kind of external threat to American society, and Trump has done just that. It's noteworthy that Trump's most serious statement was that Iran is trying to restore its nuclear weapons program, which, according to his own words, was destroyed during the 12-day war led by Israel in June of last year. Well, maybe I'm nitpicking here, but Trump says that like we destroyed it and now they're restoring it. Quote, "We are negotiating with the Iranians and they want to make a deal, but we haven't heard those sacred words exactly. We will never have nuclear weapons. I prefer to solve this problem through diplomatic means, but one thing is certain: I will never allow a state that is the main sponsor of terrorism to possess nuclear weapons. And no country should doubt America's resolve." And here comes the most important point. Secretary of State Marco Rubio held a rare briefing for leading U.S. lawmakers regarding Iran. Just a few hours before that, American President Trump, in his State of the Union address to Congress, stated that Tehran will never be allowed to develop nuclear weapons. Marco Rubio held a closed meeting with the so-called Gang of Eight, or the Eight, which includes high-ranking lawmakers from both parties in the House of Representatives and the Senate. As well as the heads and high-ranking members of the intelligence committees of the House of Representatives and the Senate. And this Gang of Eight receives information from the White House about secret intelligence matters, which may include preparations for significant military actions. Marco Rubio, let me remind you, last publicly informed this same group in early January, at the time when the US began the operation to capture Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela. The details of the current report by Marco Rubio to congressmen and senators are classified, but as he was leaving the briefing, the leader of the Democratic minority in the Senate, Chuck Schumer, said, quote, "This is serious, and the administration must explain its position to the American people." I'll also quote Democrat Jim Himes, who also left the same meeting with Marco Rubio and immediately stated, quote, "I am very concerned. Wars in the Middle East do not benefit presidents or the country, and we have not heard a single compelling reason why now is the time to start another war in the Middle East." So basically, the statements of congressmen and senators after the closed meeting with Marco Rubio about Iran suggest to us that Trump is ready for a big war and is preparing Congress for it. Just like Trump's subsequent statements in Congress also lead us to think that he is preparing the American public for this. And in addition to words, we also have actions. The United States has transferred more than 150 military aircraft to bases in the Middle East and Europe over the course of a week. Experts who have analyzed the deployment say that it surpasses in scale the preparations for strikes against Iran's nuclear program in June of last year. The scale of the concentrated forces means that the American military can carry out any decision by President Trump, from a prolonged campaign to more targeted limited strikes. And, as the Washington Post notes, more than half of the deployed aircraft have landed at bases in Eastern Europe outside the range of most Iranian missiles. This allows the US to deploy material resources and personnel without creating an attractive target for Tehran. The key deployment point has become the Muwafaq Salti Air Base in Jordan. Satellite images from February 21st show more than 60 combat aircraft, including over a dozen F-35 fighters. In addition, there are 2 aircraft carriers in the region, the USS Abraham Lincoln off the coast of Oman and the USS Gerald Ford near Belarus. On board, there are destroyers equipped with dozens of Tomahawk cruise missiles, which were used to strike Iranian nuclear targets in June. The US has also deployed more than a third of its active fleet of E-3G Sentry airborne early warning aircraft in the Middle East and Europe. F-22, Raptor and F-16 fighter jets have also been spotted at European bases. So, in the coming days, it will essentially become clear whether Trump is preparing for war or if this is just a strategy of intimidation and Tehran will blink first and make concessions. I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode. Subscribe to the channel and don't forget to like. Friends, if you found this episode interesting and useful, you can support the work of this YouTube channel financially through your donations or a paid subscription using the links and details in the description and the QR code on your screens. I would be grateful for any support from you. That's all for now. Take care of yourselves. Goodbye, everyone.